What's up, everybody? Welcome to We Have Cool Friends, the cool show where we interview our cool friends about the cool things they're doing. I'm Greg Miller, and this is my cool friend, Steve Zaragoza.
Hi, Greg.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
I'm 2020.
I remember when we would do this show in the studio, you'd ask, I'm great. This is happening. Everybody now, we all have that thing of like, it could be worse, but it could be better. We're just there. We're even keel.
And you don't want to be like the person that's like, I'm doing fantastic.
Best year of my life.
Great. Best year of my life.
I've been waiting for a pandemic.
Trust that person. You don't
trust
God,
I
would not trust that person.
Steve, I'm incredibly excited about this episode of We Have Cool Friends. Not only have we been trying to do this forever, I don't think you and I have ever sat down and had a conversation.
No, we haven't. We've had like in passing small chit chats, and we've had like how you doing, the trials and tribulations moments, but we've never sat down and just chatted. So
I'm super stoked about this because on top of you being a huge Ghostbusters fan, we'll get to obviously, you're always the nicest dude. You're always the happiest guy. Like I love those moments of when we do run into each other at a Comic-Con or catch up at a VidCon or whatever, those like boosts of Steve. So I'm excited for this. But before we get any deeper into it, I'm always bad at this. Somebody's watching right now, somebody's listening right now, and they don't know who you are. How do you describe yourself to people?
Well, I'm just this kind of wacky dude from back in the early, YouTube, the 2012. I mean, not the early YouTube, because that's like way, that's 2006 shit. I'm the 2012 rise of the Google YouTube days. And I was on a show called SourceFed with a bunch of fantastic, talented folks. And then that went away. Rest in peace. Throwing out. What did you pour one out?
Pour it out. Yeah.
Whatever the kids do. And then went off and started a new thing called the Valleyfolk, which had its own little roller coaster ride.
Sure.
And now I'm just this kind of guy who's been around. You might have seen me in things. And that's me.
How do you do that? And wrap your head around that, I guess. Because I think, for me, having such a quote unquote traditional upbringing in the video world or whatever, of going to IGN and working there forever and then doing something radical and branching off. It was always, I think, even being at IGN and looking at SourceFed and looking at SourceFed Nerd and seeing you guys be we're the new kids on the block and we're doing all this thing and it's news, but it's crazy and it's this. And it's like so many people, I think, had that YouTube moment, as you're saying, not even the early YouTube moment, but that YouTube moment, right? The Google YouTube moment, and then when chased other things, drifted off, found out it wasn't for them. They feel too old for it. Something evolved, changed. You're still there, evolving and changing with it, but you've gone from being that fresh-faced kid to now being like, no, I've been around a long time. And this is what I do. And in Google YouTube years, I'm old as hell.
Yeah. And that feels like centuries ago, especially in 2020, where we're just in a vortex, in a void, and it seems like it's never ending. But it does seem like decades ago. Yeah, it really was. Like, and it was a time, I felt, I certainly was allowed to expel the weirdly unnatural amount of energy that I just have inside of me. And it was a great place for me to kind of like get to know myself, become an entertainer like I've always wanted to be in some way. And it's weird how things are so different now. We keep bringing up, especially now, how SourceFed was so news-based, and even SourceFed Nerd was news-based.
Sure.
But how would we be able to navigate the news of today in a SourceFed
fashion?
And I don't think it's possible. It's just not possible.
So I think SourceFed is so key to who you are and how you come into all this. If somebody missed that, what do you describe SourceFed as? Because it was news, but it was also sketch, and it was also whatever you wanted it to be. Like even as somebody I remember watching it on the peripheral as I was doing my thing with IGN, have a hard time like nowadays being like, oh, I guess it would have been this.
I guess if I how do I sound, by the way? Am I coming through a little weird or am I good?
You went a little robot for a second for me. But the fact that Kevin didn't interrupt us made me say everything's cool.
I'm having like a robot moment. Can I do something really quick that might
Of
explode
course you
the whole
can,
internet?
Steve. No, Steve, we're kind of funny. A garbage truck on fire. Actually, while you do that, let me tell you about the show. If you didn't know, this is We Have Cool Friends, everybody. Each and every week, we interview one of our cool friends. Of course, you can watch it usually Tuesdays, 11 a.m. We put them up on youtube.com/kindoffunny. Podcast services around the globe. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, your iTunes, your whatnots. Please like, subscribe, and share. Remember that you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunny. Be like our Patreon producer, Mohammed. Of course, be like the thousands of other people who make the Kind of Funny train keep on rolling. You can get the show ad-free. You can write in to be part of the show, and you can get exclusive perks and goodies on patreon.com/kindoffunny. Today, we're brought to you by Manscaped Keeps in Bespoke Post, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, back to Robot Steve.
Dude, my nipples are hard with how professional you are.
You know what I mean? It's like the 19th show of the day. I'm on my 5th coffee. I'm ready to fucking go,
dude,
Steve.
You got that thing that Anthony Carboni has, which is just like consummate professional host demeanor.
Sure, I can click it on, and then I can also laugh for 9 minutes about a name, Meg.
But see, that's why you're part of that new generation of very good natural hosts.
Hold on, Kevin Coelho, producer, is interrupting.
Sorry, Steve. Is there any way I can get you to turn it down just a little bit? Just a little bit.
Turn down for what?
A classic song.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah. That sounds
wonderful.
much better. Thank you.
All right, back to complimenting it. I'm one of these Anthony Carboni.
Yeah, no, you're one of those the new generation of host type people. And like, look, I did a lot of hosting stuff for a really long time and then kind of stopped doing it and kind of miss it and kind of don't miss it at the same time.
Sure.
But you and Anthony Carboni are like, and there's many other people, Tiffany Smith, Maude Garrett, you know, all of these like amazing host people where their jobs are, I mean, Tiffany's now like doing other things, but
acting. Like she's starring in things. She's the princess, right, in that movie.
Yeah, she is, and she nails it, and she's so good. But I look at you guys, and I see you host things, and I just feel so inspired by how the hell you guys are able to make it professional and then organic and natural, and like you're just having a chill conversation with your friends and being able to laugh and break like you do, which I do all the time.
Yeah,
it just humanizes you in a way that's so relatable, and it's what I want to see when someone's interviewing someone I love or a movie, you know, stars from a movie that I've always loved, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, I think, such an interesting part of, and I think that's, you know, it's interesting to have you on and talk about hosting and being an online personality, right? Because again, we were on the same path at different points in different places. And so, yeah, I think, you know, I was talking about joining IGN at the right time and, you know, breaking off and starting our own Patreon at the tip of the sword, right time. Nobody knew what the hell we were doing thing. But there is that weird thing right now where authenticity and being able to do exactly what you're described is in vogue. And people want that and they want to work with that. And I'm always shocked when somebody comes to us and like, oh, we want to host the EA, want to host you. I'm like, cool. You know, I talk shit about your games all the time and do it. Oh yeah. No, we're fine with that. We're trying to be better. That's why we want, okay, cool. Like the idea that they're fine with bringing that kind of personality and having that kind of thing in there is antithetical to what I thought it would have been. Right. Like I think, you know, you think of a Ryan Seacrest or a Billy Bush, and granted, even now those people have way more personality and for better or worse in podcasts and Twitter. But like back in the day of like what you'd see John Tesh do on Entertainment Tonight.
Right,
like, who the fuck's this guy? He's tofu and he's just doing his thing.
And isn't it funny how like, because I mean, the answer there is probably because these companies have these like, you know, these old suits that are like, I've worked in television for 30 years. And they don't really know what like the new generation of viewers really want. And then you get like a young buck in there who's like, hey, you know, we got to get like Anthony Carboni or Greg Miller or Maude Garrett or whatever to host these like things because they're the voice of like this new generation. Essentially, like they speak and have opinions like this generation, and it's so important to have that in an organic way. not in a scripted teleprompter kind of way. And and I feel like it's those people who like go like, I want Greg Miller to do it because that guy is real and he laughs at shit and he's got a fun look and a fun face and you want to just hug the guy
or
and
punch him if you're someone with the internet, right? Yeah, no. And I think again, like that's, you know, when we started our thing, and I keep coming back because I want to get into Valleyfolk and Patreon and all what you've done too.
And we'll get back to SourceFed in a second.
This is a free flow conversation. We got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But it's that idea of like when we left, it was that thing of I thought I was gonna have to go on like a publisher by publisher, game developer by game developer like tour and explain what we were doing. And I was shocked when everybody got it. And it's been interesting, I think, to see the world catch up to that. And I think, you know, you talk about Kind of Funny's audience, you talk about the Valleyfolk's audience. It's the same thing where it no longer is, oh man, I have 2.5 million subscribers on YouTube. Like that's great. And that's a cool vanity number, but people can look at how many patrons we have or just how dedicated our audience is, that when we say, hey, go vote in this stupid thing or support this, or, you know, they see actual movement on that. And that is valued more than just having a big vanity number.
Right, because I think it's like it's more obvious when it's like a pointed piece of content or it's like an appointed ad that was focus grouped with people that, you know, don't really, they're out of touch with kind of like what this stuff really is, and then you kind of lose sight of the kind of like the soul of something that people have an intense fandom for. Yeah. And then you kind of just go like, oh well, I can see right through that, and people are getting smarter. Like they see that and they go, I see what you're trying to do, but it's so fake and it's so soulless that it's like it drives people away. It's more important to be like, I mean, even though in a way it's kind of I don't know how political you get here. We'll try not to go too deep, but it's like, it's kind of like
I'm hosting the introduction of Joe Biden's Animal Crossing.
Oh, right.
Don't worry about me being like, I'm not going to say anything. Fuck Donald Trump. He sucks.
Wonderful. ACAB, all that good shit. But it's like, I feel like, you know, it's so important in our industry to be real and unfiltered, but also respectful and understanding of you know, of various things and have various degrees of empathy. And then there's the other side of that's like, well, this guy that I'm voting for says whatever the fuck he wants, and it's real evil shit, but it sounds like the shit me and my friends are laughing about and love over here. And it's like that works for them in a political way that's really dangerous too.
Well, I mean, like it's, you know, when we did our first of many now podcasts about all this stuff and as it was happening, how fucked up everything is, like at one point in a rant, I was going off and I was like, I feel like I'm crazy that me, a guy who's famous for talking about PlayStation, thinks more about what I tweet and what the ramifications and ripples and interpretations of that will be than the president of the United States, right? And it's the same thing for you, I think, where I see the way the Valleyfolk interacts with their audience, right? Where it is like, no, we have to have this authentic, honest conversation in a way that you see politicians in Donald Trump not. Where it is, they're going to say, they're going to lie, and if you lie, you're blocked and I'm moving on and I'm not dealing with it. And it's like, I think our careers would be over if we did that, right? Or they'd be, I guess, drastically, you know, swung one way or the other to the side that I don't agree with, or that's who would have to pander to.
Right, who you'd have to pander to in that position would eventually would rot me from the inside out, essentially. Like there are times when I feel like, man, how much easier would it be if I was just this big piece of shit asshole that didn't care about anybody and just had zero filter, zero care about how someone would react to what I say. And then, you know, would I find success? Is that a road where that leads to success? Yeah. And I've thought about it, but it's one of those things where it's like, I could never do that, dude. I've talked about this before. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I've played video games. I don't know if you know this. I'm kind of a gamer
here, guys.
Real quick, I just want everybody to know we got a gamer here. But I played video games where like you can choose to be good or bad in the progression of the game, and
Yeah.
I cannot be bad
Yeah.
even in a video game.
Totally.
And it feels wrong to be bad in a video game. And even in The Last of Us 2, you make all these like really kind of terrible decisions that you kind of have to make even if you don't want to be a bad guy. Like you have to fucking kill dogs and shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's like I feel shitty doing it that way. I can't imagine not wanting, not caring enough about just, other people to the point where you're just like, I'm just going to say something about an entire group of people and I don't give a fuck what they think about it. And it's just like blows my fucking mind. It blows my mind.
You bring we've all had that, I think, at some point where you're like, man, like, why would you do that? Would it ever be worth it? And every one of the people who spews hate professionally and garners this audience and fosters this audience that is fueled by hate or bigotry or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I look at those people and I'll see them tweet or do whatever, and none of them ever seem fucking happy. And that's the thing I always fall back on.
That's the connective tissue, right?
And it's the thing of like, if we can make a living off of the 9,000 views and the audience you have, great, fucking do it, because I'm happy.
Right.
And it's because it is that you're doing, this is what you fall back to, the people who are out there stumping and saying horrible things and following the leader on this, where it's like, you have to know how ignorant and horrible that is, but you see that it gets you a paycheck. You see that it gets you along. It sees that you get pats on the back from these people. And I guess that's why you do it. But at your heart of hearts, when you lay down, right, that you're making the world a worse place. Like, you have to.
It's really hard to it's just, it doesn't make sense how, because I mean, as strongly as we believe about how it's better to be good to people, it's better to, because I want to be treated with respect by everybody, and in order to have that, you have to be able to respect other people and treat them with respect and love and all of those things. And as strongly as we feel about that, there is an opposite side of that, and it's a lot. There's a vast majority of people that believe the opposite of that, or at least don't care enough about those things that it's not even in their radar. It's not on their radar at all. And it just blows my
so
mind.
much about focusing on themselves and what this decision will do to themselves. Right. I think, to the Biden thing today of tweeting about the Animal Crossing, like, it's, kicked up a bunch of conversations online about keep your politics out of games and whatever. And the people are just like, I'm just so sick of the Kind of Funny talking about politics. And they're not I shouldn't say they're not part of the core audience, but there's, fringe people who are like, there's people who are commenting on shit that are not, don't even know who the fuck we are. They're just there to talk shit. But they're like, oh man. And it's like, I just want this to be over with. And so many people are like, yes, we understand that you want it to be over with because it doesn't affect you. Like, you're going to, no matter what happens on the other side, you're probably going to be fine. But there's so many people whose lives will be radically different one way or the other. And it's like, don't you understand that? Can't you have empathy for that?
I think it's like some people understand that, but they're like, but I got to protect my family, and I have to protect my home and my like land and my country. And it just goes further and further and further. And it's just this big wall that's really kind of separating everybody. It sucks that there isn't like a solution. It's so strange. Like we're all earthlings, right? Like we're all literally earthlings. Like, it doesn't even have to be about culture. And I mean, there's so much important shit in culture and respecting all of that and respecting different parts of the world and regions and Western cultures and Eastern cultures and all those things. But it's like, we're all on Earth. We're all on this Earth. We're all trying to live. We're all trying to breathe. We're all trying to love. We're all trying to be happy. We're all trying to love.
Are we, Steve? Are we all trying to love?
We are all trying. We all want to be loved. We all want to be happy. We all want to be hugged. We're in a pandemic. We wouldn't be if people gave more of a shit. It's like, I just think it's going to be, we're always going to have this battle. And it doesn't have to be. And I think there's going to be ups and downs, and there will be wins and losses always. We just have to find our pockets of happiness, and we have to find what makes us happy, and in turn doesn't hurt anybody. And I think that's kind of the key, right? Like, for at least in an individual basis. Yeah.
No, 100%. And I think that's, I don't know, like, man, I didn't expect to get so political.
I know.
Steve. I love it.
I got a gremlin back here, and I'm like, let's talk about toys and Ghostbusters and shit. Like, no, fuck it.
But that's 2020, right? Where it's like, you have to get off the bench. You have to say this stuff. And it's like, before even this happened, we had somebody on Games Daily write in, and they were just like, by the way, he I forget what race he was, and he's like, so fuck Islamophobes, and I was like, oh yeah, and I was like, no, fuck them, and fuck racists, and fuck, and like that got broken out on Reset Era at the time. People were like, oh man, good on them for saying this, and it's like, that's the age we live in, where it's like that's like a polarizing stance to say fuck racists and bigots. Holy shit. And so like I'm right there with you of like when your ideologies are so against each other, diametrically opposed, but it's the same thing of like being raised learning about America and our strengths, and give me your tired, your huddled masses, like this vision of we are a country of immigrants. This is great, but to get to this point in time where people are like, no, fuck, this is a white country, and this is how it's gonna say, like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It just
like,
doesn't make sense.
How did this get taught to you or instilled in you in a way that I'm not, that just
I mean, and it is kind of scary too that when I'm watching Lovecraft Country, which is a fantastic show on HBO Max that I love very much, and I'm learning things that I didn't know about our history.
Totally.
Through a sci-fi show with horror, and that's like, a J.J. Abrams thing, and it's like, holy shit, our country really did cover up a lot of shit, didn't they? Yeah. And they really didn't teach us a lot of things about how exactly they came into possession of the United States. And it's really sad.
For me, it was Watchmen. When they're talking about the Tulsa riots and stuff.
Totally.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's crazy. And I remember my best friend's a professor of criminal sociology, and like he came to visit like right after episode 1. And he's like, you realize that's real, right? And I'm like, no fucking way. And he's like, yeah. And it's like, so then you get into this thing now of them, the movement to teach all of that in schools, and then like, Trump's whole thing of like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to teach how great America is. And it's like, oh my God, how can anyone hear this and think you're right? This doesn't at all sound like fascism. This doesn't at all. Because like we're already indoctrinated enough that like, I live with my roommate's a Brit and my wife is a French Canadian. And so like in a movie, when they do the Pledge of Allegiance, they're both like, oh my God, is that real? And I'm like, that's real.
Dude, it's like a cult a little bit.
Totally. It's like a cult. And it's, and even to sit there and think about the way we think of the founding fathers, right? And like, you talk to anybody else from another country and they're like, dude, that's fucked up. You're like, yeah, I guess you never think about it because you're in it and that's normal and that's how it is. And we're all so proud to be an American, right? And we saved the world multiple times.
Right. And it gets scarier when you think about how like there are so many things that we enjoy as Americans, as citizens of the United States of America. And a lot of those things came from doing really like terrible, awful atrocities. Yeah. And it's like, I remember growing up with a sense of pride of what we have, and certainly a lot of people gave their lives for this country, and there's a lot of good in there too, just there's a lot of good and bad right now. And it's like there's so much just blood and atrocities and terrible shit that we all kind of just forget about, so that we can like keep drinking our Starbucks and having our Apple products and things like that. And it just starts to get really scary and overwhelming. And it starts to feel like, well, if like, what do I have to do to be like, to support to be on the right side of history, Yeah. And it's like, what is available to me? And this is like super tangential, I guess, but it's just, our history is so gross. Our history is so gross, but it's also so rich and beautiful. And I just wish there was a way for everybody to know everything about our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then just be like, hey, let's just all move on, and we apologize, and we don't want to make the same mistakes our ancestors made. Totally. And we just want everyone to feel free and happy and able to do what they want here in the means, without being like a terrible murdering asshole or like a cheating, lying, greedy person.
It sounds so simple. And
it sounds so simple.
So complicated so quickly.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. And it's so hard to speak on it when we're just like nerdy dudes that play video games and watch movies and shit.
Oh my God. And I mean, that's the thing where it's like, we're, for better or worse, the product of all of this, right? We are, American exceptionalism. We are the American school system. We are the fact that, I talk about all the time, today with the Biden stuff, somebody put on the subreddit like, oh man, like I I hope they don't end up regretting, being so behind this guy. And I'm like, I didn't put this in my response, but I was like, how much worse would he have to be that I was like, I should have fucking voted for Trump. That's a terrible, you know what I mean? But I put in there like, I regret not going harder for Hillary. You know what I mean? Of like standing there, because at the time it was more of a, listen, whatever, let's see, and it's like, oh God, like, you know what I mean? Because it was, you're spinning up so many worst case scenarios, and now here we are trapped in our houses for 7 months because of a bungled response to all this. Riots in the street because there's no justice. Him literally saying "fuck" on Fox. The list goes on, right? As you go into like, is this who you want representing the country? And my question, I guess, for you, if you've wrestled with it like I have, do you think the world's always felt like it's teetering on the edge of the abyss? Because I think back to when we were kids. And my parents wanted to vote Dukakis in over George Bush, but it didn't feel like if he wins, it's going to fucking be the end of the world. Nor if Dukakis wins, Bush won't give it up and we're going to civil war. Like, I don't know if it did. Was there ever a time when it felt like politics worked, when reaching across the aisle was a real thing? Did it always feel like a team sport where nothing's getting done?
I don't think so, man. I think it always felt like it was on the edge. And I think people were always skeptical. But I think that there was more control over the perception of government, the perception of news, the perception of pop culture, everything. It was just more isolated to a group of people that had tighter control. And I think that once we got the internet and once we were able to like really connect to each other, then we really started to just kind of like talk more about, hey, wait a minute, didn't that guy just murder someone in broad daylight? And like,
and you have to watch it, right?
Right, exactly. And it's like, because I mean, imagine way back in the day when you would see someone murdered in broad daylight, like even like,
what a statement right there. Imagine way back in the day when you'd see someone murdered in broad daylight.
But it's like, the days of like before the internet, before news, before like, let's talk about like maybe Old West times or something. And you see like 1800s US, and you see like some like scoundrel shoot down some guy in cold blood in the street, and then the bandit guys just put the body into a ditch and then ride off, and then everyone's like, oh, and one of the bandit guys says, if anybody says anything, I'll come kill your whole family. And then they just take off. And it's like the truth about what happened in that situation is now just kind of like, it doesn't matter because one guy maybe saw it, but nobody believes it because they're all scared now. And I just think that like you could get away with so much more.
That's true. That's fair.
At a time when things were like that. But again, I think that we're just, the media really likes to, and even now really likes to, it's, show the grandiose, violent, evil sides of things, because that's what gets people to click on shit and look at shit and watch shit. And everyone's feeling like shit right now. So everyone's in the gloom and doom void, and everyone's just kind of taking in all this evil shit and saying how bad the world is. They're kind of ignoring that, like, there is beauty there and there is happiness there. And I think that if you look throughout time, like you were saying, there has always been a balance of good and evil, kind of, in a way. I don't know. I kind of believe that. There's been good things, there's been bad things, always. And I think you can find that throughout all of time, I think. I don't know. I'm a nerd.
I agree with you, right? I think like the instantaneousness of everything now, and the hot takes, and of course you're following like-minded individuals on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, so you're seeing this, you're in groups that everybody has these same thoughts, so your thoughts are amplified, you think they are the only thoughts. But then it is the idea, like you're talking about, of like, first off, being a kid growing up, you assume adults are adults and have it all under control. Even when you look at political scandals before everything was in your hand, okay, like we were watching The Devil All the Time last night, right?
What's that?
That's that Netflix movie with Tom Holland.
It's
the new one out there. It's really brutal and really not depressing. Well, it's not uplifting. It's depressing, I guess, but it's really good. But it's, set in the late 50s into the 60s. And I remember at one point I turned to Jen. I was like, just imagine what it was like to have information travel this slowly, because a bunch of stuff happens and they have to make phone calls. But like, people can be on the run and you can actually disappear.
Right.
Now it is that idea of like, whether you want it to be Trump, Biden, or any other adult you look at, it's the emperor has no clothes. Anybody you don't like, you can Google and find a reason. Here's where they fucked up, and this is what they did, and here's what they said. And so you look at these people, and anybody in power anywhere, all of us, you're like, these people suck.
Right. And I guess there's like, going forward into this new kind of like zeitgeist of where we're all kind of like, we cancel people, we push people away, we write people off, we basically send them to like pervert island or something, and make sure no boats go back there. And it's like, it makes me wonder, like, how do you, because I mean, yeah, you could dig into the past of pretty much anybody and find some questionable behavior, I'm sure. But it's like, when, how do you forgive that? How do you move on from that? You gotta like, see if there's genuine apology or something, or genuine change, and then you could be like, oh, that guy, even though like who's the guy, the director of James Gunn, the director of
James Gunn, Guardians, and now Suicide Squad, and back to
Guardians.
Guardians.
Now back to Guardians. Like, he said a stupid thing on Twitter, and then he was like, but like, I was an idiot and I'm sorry, and now he's back to doing stuff, and it's like, I think that's okay. I think totally do that.
I mean, again, that's the whole, like, interesting argument of all of this. And what you're talking about is like, when that broke, I remember being at Comic-Con, and it was like, oh my God, they dumped him, and reading through it and him being like, listen, I apologized for this like 4 years ago. And you looked at it, was like, oh, this did come up already. And it's that thing where once the article is put up, once the headline is there, it doesn't matter what comes afterwards, because that article is not necessarily updated, right? It's a new article, it's a new generation. So whatever you're clicking on, you get half the information, unless you go to Wikipedia, which maybe somebody's already doctored or done something to, and yada, yada, yada. And so like, it's that constant thing with, me and like, existing now 14 years next year online, right? And living everything, and having hundreds of thousands of hours of content where I have to, and talk about all the time, the mistakes I've made and the things I've said that I regret. And I try to use it as a learning experience, but it's always that thing that around the corner, somebody there, my response to something stupid I did on Up at Noon, or something I said on a podcast as a 27-year-old kid, now a 37-year-old man, like, I've responded to it, but there's still a fan, a detractor, a person who heard it the first time and was like, fuck this guy, I'm out. And they don't know that I've changed. So then when they see me doing something, like, oh, sure, but 10 years ago he said so. And it's like, I get that. That's a fair thing. I did that. But it is that thing of like, once the genie's out of the bottle, how do you teach what you're talking about, which is forgiveness and showcase personal growth?
Right. And I think it's important to show, I mean, I don't know. And who's the judge of like personal growth too, right? Like who's to say like someone has made up for their wrongdoings or whatever. But I mean, all you can really do is I guess depending on the field, is just prove that you listen and you learn and you grow, and that's that. And if you see that, and at that point it's up to the individual, right? But I think that if you feel comfortable supporting someone that maybe said some dumb shit back in the day, but has shown immense growth and change, and you want to still continue supporting that person, then that's great. But if you want to walk away from that, and that's where you want to leave the story, and you don't really care to hear more about it, or the other side of the story or whatever, you also have the right to just be like, I'm done with that person. But, I guess it's just all about understanding that there's those two types of people. There's the people that kind of, maybe accept it and move on. And there's the people that are like, I don't want to fuck with that, I'm out. And it's like, what can you do,
Yeah. How long did it take you to figure that out? I mean, you've been doing this just about as long. You've grown up in front of the camera in so many ways as well. Like, when did you wrestle with that of like, oh, that's how this has to be?
I mean, I did some real dumb shit too, man. I mean, I like, back in the SourceFed days, we were just like, it was a different time. Everyone says that it was a different time. I don't know. I guess it seems like there was a big shift in kind of like how to behave and how to work in a team with people, and how to how to how there's a hierarchy, and how there's like certain people that they abuse their power, and how to handle that. I feel like barely now in 2020 we're learning how to like stand up for ourselves and speak out against these things, and there's still a fear surrounding being able to, but I feel like more and more people come out and admit things, and make it more comfortable for people to come out and share their stories and experiences and things like that. And back in like the SourceFed days, it just felt like, well, we're in a writer's room, we could say whatever the hell we want, and we're making internet content, and they react well when we say ridiculous shit, and we just want to be relevant and an entertainer, and we want to make enough money to survive in LA, and we want to keep it's like there's just all those pressures of back then that felt like you were doing everything the right way, but you also were kind of like maybe not listening to the women in the room, or maybe like treating interns like shit, or maybe like not understanding that some people are working harder than you because of the way they look or the color of their skin or whatever. And I think that we're evolving in how to handle these situations, and how to listen, and how to just fucking listen and be empathetic. And I mean, years and years and years of working with all those types of people, from the gamut of like very nice, naive, and afraid people, to like overbearing, powerful, scary fucking fear mongers and stuff. Like, I've worked with all of those types of people, and I've learned that what matters at the end of the day is that you're getting your job done. You're making sure that your team is happy and taken care of, and everybody's like enjoying what they're doing. And if something's wrong in any of those things, we know now that it's normal to talk about it, and it's normal to be open about it, and it's normal to vent about it on the internet. But back in the day, it was like, oh, I better shut my fucking mouth, or I'm going to lose my job. And then I'm going to have to go back to fucking working at retail in a video game store, and it's like, it's difficult, man. You do a lot of learning and changing, and especially in this industry of like ever changing moods and tones and varying degrees of watching your mouth and being respectful. It's so crazy.
So when you say this industry, which one are you talking about for you?
I mean, I guess I'd say the digital world, right? Okay. Like the digital entertainment industry. For me, I just feel like that's where I came from. That's where I'm thriving, in the digital world. Even though there's like that idea of like, oh, I want to make a movie someday, or I want to make a TV show someday. It just seems like the accessibility of the digital world, and how you can make content in your living room, whether you're forced to or not, is really endearing. And I love that a lot. So yeah, I feel like that's what I'm referring to, the whole digital space.
Because I was interested, because it's that thing, you're in LA, and I see you doing all sorts of obviously the YouTube stuff, the Valleyfolk, your own channel, but then also doing collaborations, doing the influencer stuff. You're going to movies, and again, back to authenticity, right? Like, I know what a horror fan you are. Obviously, Gremlin's behind you, and I see you going to those kind of premieres, those kind of screeners, that kind of thing, right? Yeah. And I use you as like, oh, if Steve's interested in this, I know I'm going to be interested in it.
That's awesome.
When you were talking about, starting all this off and wanting to be an entertainer, where does that go back? Like, did you know from a young age you wanted to be an entertainer, and what did that mean at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I was an 80s kid. I was born in 82. So I was hopping around in the 80s and the early 90s. And I loved The Muppet Show. I loved everything Jim Henson. And dude, I remember we talked about this, by the way, which we might have to talk about at some point or at another time. But I know how you feel about the Muppets.
You fucking Muppet fanboys. I say you, Elise Willems, every time I talk to you, you're like, wait a second. Also, I want to get back to this.
Listen, because you can't look, I love Muppets so much. Dude, I have Muppets in my apartment. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you can see, but do you see all these?
Oh yeah, you got a lot of Muppets over there.
There's like Animal and Kermit and all that over there. And I just love Muppets, and we're very protective over our Muppets. But obviously I know that, whatever, there's two sides of the story, and we'll talk about it if you want to. But I was playing with puppets and stuff when I was a kid, and my dad had a Betamax camera, which was, Beta was Sony's early video technology. and video cassette technology. And my brother and I would make sketches and puppet shows and do like weird videos, like, in 89, 86, back before YouTube, all of that shit. And we were just making funny shit. And my mom was always like, oh man, this kid's going to be like an entertainer. This kid's going to be a comedian or something. And so my whole life, I've always just been this like kind of class clowny, wacky energy boy. And I just knew I had to be something, whether it was a puppeteer or a cartoon voiceover artist.
Sure.
And, and then eventually to an actor or something. But I was very young when I learned that that was what I needed to do.
What did you start pushing for then? I'm assuming theater and stuff like that, but do you go to college for some kind
No, dude, I went to high school and then I dropped out in my final year of high school. I dropped out as a senior in high school. I didn't even make it to the...
I'm so cool, I don't even need the rest of this.
I don't need this shit. And by the way...
streets will teach me what I need.
Dude, I learned that I think I only need to pass like 2 classes to get my GED.
Oh, you got to go do it. It's got to be like back to school.
I mean, dude, actually, maybe that is a piece of
content. He joins the diving team.
But there's some sort of hilarious moment in there, I'm sure. But I was doing drama. I did drama and video production. I was in like the AV club and the drama club in high school, basically, and did a bunch of like theater shit and did a bunch of sketches and video stuff. And I'd always been making sketches with my friends and my brother and all those people. And I think I dropped out of high school and then I was like, oh shit, I think I'm going to be like a sketch comedy guy, or I'm going to be like maybe I'll get to on SNL, or maybe I'll start like a Tenacious D kind of parody band, or like a comedy rock band or something. And I just kind of always had been making shit, like little movies and sketches and things. And then my first like thing in that world was the first one that mattered anyway was I got a job at Sony Pictures from entering a contest.
Okay.
And I got to be their blogger for Comic-Con like in 2006 or something. And it was like right when Spider-Man 3 was coming, maybe, or Spider-Man 2 maybe. And I got to do a thing with them. And then everyone who worked there was like, why the hell are you working in an office? Like, you're a personality, you're a comedian, like you need to do shit. So I was like, what do I do? I'm just a baby. So I started doing like Craigslist ads and shit. And
then, are you living in LA? Did you grow up in LA? Is that...
I grew up I was born in Oxnard in California.
Okay.
Oxnard's like between Santa Barbara and LA essentially. And just a stone's throw from Los Angeles pretty much. And I had known that by that point that I was going to either be an actor or some type of entertainer. Like that's what I was shooting for. And so back in 2011 is when I got the notice for SourceFed. And the SourceFed audition notice came in, and I was like, I guess I'll audition for this. I auditioned, and then the next couple of weeks was like the biggest changes in my life, basically. And they were like, come work with us in this internet startup with this guy that's a popular internet personality, and leave your comfortable corporate job surrounded by people who got their like, Brown University, UCLA, USC, like these high honors artists working in the motion picture industry. And here I was, a high school dropout that won a contest from a dumb joke that an executive liked. And now I was like, why would I leave that job where I have health insurance and everything for this little internet startup where they're like, we'll give you a little bit of money and you'll be on camera every day from 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I'm like, God, I guess this is how you do it though.
Time to make it.
Yeah. So I'm like, fuck it. I took a huge chance and I put all my eggs into the SourceFed basket, and now here we are.
Did you ever, in the early days, was there regret to that? No, I mean, was there fear? Did you know for the whole time you were doing it that this is the thing?
Oh, it was a fear. It was a constant fear.
Yeah.
It was like we would come into the office a month in and people be like, well, I heard rumblings that if our numbers don't go up, then we're just going to shut down. And it's like, I can't do that. I put
That's not how you motivate me. Don't motivate me that way.
Dude, I worked for Sony for 5 years when I quit. Like,
Jeez.
I had like a plaque that said, 5 years of service at Sony Pictures and shit. And I was this like beloved guy in my team and my crew and everybody. And I was like, and I quit. I told them all I was leaving to pursue my dreams of being an entertainer. And everybody understood and loved it. But when I was sitting in those writers' rooms and the buzz around the office was that like next month we could shut down or downsize or something, I was like, oh, I don't know if I made the right decision here.
Sure.
It was like a constant fear. It really was.
Did it ever go away, or was that always the sort of please hang over your head?
Honestly, I don't think it went away until until years and years and years later, after being at SourceFed basically longer than any of the original hosts, not including Trisha, who's there for a really long time. Trisha Hirschberger, which I know you know.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. And I got a job offer from Kevin Pereira to be the host of a Comic-Con show through Lionsgate. Or was it Lionsgate or...
I think that's right. The Comic-Con channel, right?
Comic-Con HQ. Yeah.
HQ. Yeah.
And they gave me an offer that was like fucking glorious. I was like, I can't turn this down. And I was going to get to work with Kevin and all those people over there. And that was like a dream for me. I had watched G4 growing up.
Sure, yeah.
And all that shit. And I went to the SourceFed folks at the time, whoever was in charge. Phil wasn't really at that time. He had kind of he was doing his own thing. And I remember going to someone and going like, listen, I got an offer for something that I absolutely want to do. They're giving me my own show and I want to go do that. And they were like, well, we don't want you to go though. So tell us what we need to do to keep you around while you also do that show. And then finally I was like, okay, I have something to fall back on now.
Yeah.
And if something were to happen to SourceFed, at least I'd have something else, at this point. And that was the first time it ever felt like it wasn't
a sigh of
gonna.
relief, yeah.
Yeah, it was the first time.
Wow.
And it was like towards the end, pretty much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long were you at SourceFed?
Dude, I don't even know. Like 2012 was when I officially joined, and then 2017 is when it ended.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Fuck, I don't know, man. My brain is broken.
Well, dude, time's a flat circle this year, especially. But in general, thinking back and trying to figure out when things happened anymore, it's just gone. It's all gone.
Yeah, I can't remember.
So when it finally was time to go, like, what's it like to leave that behind?
Dude, I didn't even like go. It just ended. It was like it just ended, and then it was like, hey, I think this thing's really going away, and there's no saving it now. And we've tried every possible way to save it, including talking about putting our own money into a pot to like buy it from, whatever corporate entity owned it at that point. I think it had changed hands at that point from Discovery, but it was just like, well, I guess the news is here. It's finally ending. And it was surreal for sure. It was like, well, no one thought this thing was going to last forever. Like no one ever thinks the thing they're doing is going to last forever. They hope it does in some way that doesn't seem like it's chugging along at a snail's pace, but you really want it to work. And I think by that time it was a different thing and it was sad to say goodbye to it, but it was like, this is a chapter that needs to end, I guess.
Well, that was the thing is like, again, SourceFed had been around for so long. It had done the thing that I think you're talking about, where when these things launch, even Comic-Con HQ, I remember that starting and it was you and it was Carboni and it was Trish and you guys were doing, and I was like, this is awesome. But I also remember being like, how long is this going to last? Like, how long will they let this go?
That was another one.
And it was the same thing. Like you're talking about, the mod and everybody, and we're talking about like DC All Access. And it was like, man,
Tiffany.
I'm a huge DC fan. How long is this going to last? Like companies love launching this stuff. And it's something I didn't understand until I launched the YouTube channel that eventually became Kind of Funny, where it was like, oh, I have 75,000 Twitter followers. I'm going to put up videos clearly I'll get 50,000 views a video.
Right. At
you
least
put it out there, and like, when you're a huge company, like, oh, we're bringing in all these personalities, they got big followings, we'll put out and then you get these returns, and it's like, why is this so hard to get people to watch this video?
And like, why do I have so many followers and only like 10% of them know what I'm doing at all?
As a dumb, naive person making your own YouTube channel, that's something. But as a huge corporation that wants to see a return, it's always like, all right, well, how long are they? Do they actually know what they're committing to? Do they actually know what they're buying into?
Yeah, and it's hard in this industry too, because it's like, there's no guidebook for success. There's no like instruction booklet that says follow these things and success is at the end of the tunnel. There's a lot of like fundamentals, and there's a lot of like math and algorithms and things that you could like obsess over and lose your mind trying to learn. But for the most part, it's like, we're all just kind of like everyone's trying to figure it out. And back then with all these startups, and you know what it's like to have a startup, it's like, I don't know. I guess I'm making a product people want, and I would want this product. And I think that's important. If it's something I want, and they like it, then that's the formula, but you don't know if that's going to fucking work. And it's the same for Comic-Con HQ. I mean, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because it's like, even though I still had the SourceFed job, which I was like, okay, if it ends, I've got this Comic-Con HQ job. It was like, well, this Comic-Con HQ job is not going to last forever. and especially since the model was like paywall and all that shit back in the day. And it was like, that's an even riskier fucking thing when you put your shit behind a paywall. And it's like, and I know what that's like, and you know what that's like. And it's like, how do you give someone something that they deem worthy to pay for to see? And it was like, I don't know. I guess my face. I don't know. I'll do my best. And obviously it didn't really work out in the end. But
I mean, it's such a hard thing to do. Like even like it's, you can have the most talented people on it. You still are like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like G4 coming back. I'm like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. I love everybody involved.
Yeah.
Are they going to make it? Are they going to do it? Oh, Ven's going. Jimmy's part of it. That's rad. How long is Ven going to go for? Like, and it's not talking shit about these things. It's the reality of launching any of this stuff. And I think for me, it's always the reality of launching something big. I think, for us, and even looking at Valleyfolk, and like, starting small and then growing as you go is a different beast, because you start knowing like, all right, cool, we're at rock bottom. What is this? What can this possibly become?
Right.
But to go in and be like, we're going to have state-of-the-art sets. We're going to have this thing. We're going to have that. We're going to get these writers. We're going to have that. And it's like, it reminds me of like Up at Noon when we started that. And when we had all this YouTube money, year one, you'd be in the writer's room. It would be 12 people. Drucker was there, and he had jokes he had sourced from these friends he had. And then you jump to that final year, and it was me and Altano with a whiteboard, and Nick would come in halfway through eating an apple and be like, you got a show? I'm like, I think so. I don't know. Like we don't know what we're doing, but we think we have a show.
And you could do whatever you wanted, basically, right? Like you could just kind of throw caution to the wind and be like, let's see if this works, because you had the wiggle room for it. Yeah.
So then, well, first off, I guess I should say, ladies and gentlemen, you go to patreon.com/kindafunny, of course, get the show ad free. And speaking of ads, let's hear from our sponsors. This episode of We Have Cool Friends is brought to you by Manscaped. Strap in for one of their classic ads. 2020 is nuts, but that doesn't mean you should disregard your beautiful nuts. Manscaped is on a mission to take care of your twins with their below-the-waist grooming and hygiene products, and they just released their products in the UK, Canada, and Australia. I'm Greg Miller, and I can tell you I have very clean-shaven balls because of Manscaped, and you don't have to worry about nicks or cuts or anything like that. You don't have to pay attention, because they got the ceramic blade. They got a whole bunch of magic going on there. You just get in there, you do it, you feel great. They also just released the Crop Care Kit, which is a formulation bundle to give you A+ balls and is the ultimate male hygiene hack. The Crop Care Kit includes the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant. The name speaks for itself. The Crop Reviver Ball Toner, a spray-on toner that will give your balls a little slice of heaven with their aloe vera and hazel extracts. Crop Cleanser Body Wash, Crop Mop Ball Wipes, Foot Duster Foot Deodorant, the Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, of course, that offers a replaceable ceramic blade with advanced skin-safe technology, which helps reduce grooming accidents. The waterproof technology also allows you to groom in the shower and for up to 90 minutes. It's the best trimmer for your butt, balls, and body. These formulations are all vegan, cruelty-free, dye-free, sulfate-free, and paraben-free. I don't even know what that is. So you know your manhood is in good hands. You're probably playing with your balls right now, so you might as well invest in the crop care kit to make it elite. Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code MORNING. If you care for those beautiful balls of yours, all you have to do is go to their site, hit a few buttons and your phone on your phone, and you will change your life for the better. That's manscaped.com, code MORNING. Our next sponsor is Bespoke Post. This fall, as you get back into the swing of things, Bespoke Post has a brand new seasonal box of awesome collections for guys. Guaranteed to upgrade your life, just like Tim did with the amazing whiskey glasses I want to steal from him. Whether it's gear to upgrade your autumn craft beers or cozy threads for when the temperature dips, Bespoke Post only sends guys the best stuff every month. No matter what you're into, Box of Awesome has you covered. From style and grooming goods to barware, cooking tools, and outdoor gear, Box of Awesome has collections for every part of your life. To get started, take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers will help them pick the right box for you. I did it, and of course, I got the whiskey glasses that Tim has, and that's what I want, so mine are on the way. To get started, take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. They release new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. It's free to sign up, and you can skip or cancel at any time. Each box costs you $45, but has more than $70 worth of gear inside. Get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code MORNING at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code MORNING for 20% off your first box. And our final sponsor of the day is Keeps. As guys, so much of our identity is wrapped up in our hair. Look at mine. From how you feel after getting a fresh cut to the way it's perfectly styled before going out. That's why when we get into our 20s and 30s and start to notice the first signs of hair loss, it definitely feels like panic time. Because, let's face it, no guy is ever ready to go bald. Thankfully, now there's Keeps, the simple and easy way to keep your hair. Did you know 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35? Nick and Andy started to notice it, right? And they took action just like you should. The best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it while you still have your hair left. Get treated from home. You used to have to go to the doctor's office for your hair loss prescription. Now, thanks to Keeps, you can visit a doctor online and get hair loss medication delivered right to your home. They make it easy to and deliver your medication every 3 months so you can say goodbye to pharmacy checkout lines and awkward doctor visits. Keeps offers generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products out there. You may have tried them before, but probably never for this price. Prevention is key. Keeps treatments typically take between 4 to 6 months to see results, so it's important to act fast. The sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you'll save. Find out why Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any of its competitors, and more than 100,000 men trust Keeps for their hair loss prevention medication. Keeps treatments start at just $10 a month. Plus, for a limited time, you can get your first month for free. Please use the whole thing we're talking about here. Oh, hold on, that's not where I'm supposed to go. Please use the URL right here. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/morning to receive your first month of treatment free. That's KEEPS.com/morning. Keeps.com/morning. Then we'll come back. So, SourceFed ends.
Yes.
How quickly do you pivot to Valleyfolk?
I want to say there was at least a year or 2, and then Elliot called me up. Elliot Morgan, OG
terrible person.
SourceFed
I've worked
host.
with him before.
Terrible
Horrible.
person. He called me up and was like, "Hey, man, remember when SourceFed was ending and there were talks about rebranding with the old hosts and maybe that would be a way to like save it and but you know all the legalities and all that shit was there?" And I was like, "Yeah, I remember that." And he's like, "Well, what if we just did a thing on our own and got as many people from the old days that we could get back, logistically and realistically and monetarily makes sense, and see if we can just do this thing?" And so we did it. It was me and Joe and Elliot and Lee, original SourceFed hosts. And we're like, let's just give this a shot. We'll start a Patreon. We'll see if people want to see us do goofy shit again. And it fucking worked. It worked. People were like, we missed you guys. So yes, of course we'll jump over to this thing. And the overwhelming support was quite a ride. You know, it was like, holy shit, people still love us. They still believe in us. and and then after all of the trials and tribulations, winning a TV show, going
bring the funny, right? Yeah, you
dude,
guys won that.
We won a TV show, and then we went through one of the hardest internet breakups that we could ever imagine could have possibly happened to us, and then we went through that whole thing, and we thought the whole thing was over, and then we gave it one more college try, and it seemed to work out, and then a pandemic happened.
What you can't plan for.
Yep. And just when we thought that we could like make it keep working, the pandemic happened, and then we started to make pandemic content, and we're kind of doing okay right now. We're actually we're consistently making shit. We're putting all of our eggs into the basket. I'm trying Twitch shit. I'm like really heavily leaning into Twitch.
Yeah.
And dude, we're gonna release we're making a board game.
No shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's barely kind of becoming a thing, but we're gonna start a Kickstarter for a board game from a show we created called The Movie Game. And we're kind of like, fuck it, we can make a game out of this, because we made this show. Joe made this show, and then he put us all in it, and we brought all our friends in, and we were like, let's do this movie game. And since the first time we ever posted a video of it, we've only ever seen comments from people that are like, you guys got to make this into an actual game. So we just fucking did it, and we made it into a game, and we're releasing a Kickstarter really soon.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We're finding successes still in this dark, bleak time.
And that's, what there's so many interesting ways I want to go with you from this.
Sure, please.
Right there. Yeah. That's the interesting thing about it, where, I look at all of our friends and you and our peers and stuff like that. And it is that idea that for kind of funny, we're so lucky. And for the longest time, it's always grass is greener. But, we look at you guys, we look at Rooster Teeth, you look at whoever, and it's like, oh my God, they're doing these giant productions and costumes and crazy shit. And it's like, man, Nick would love to do that. And we'd love to do that. And like, then this happens, right? And it's easy for us to pivot from home to all we do is podcasts to talk to each other. So now it's, a different thing. There's a bit of latency, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But we can not miss a beat. But then to have a show like yours, right? A channel like yours that is so, you podcast as well, but is so creatively driven on let's make sketches, let's do cool shit.
Yep. Let's sit in a room and like come up with ideas and use the energy in the room to like create content. And it's just not the same when you're on a fucking Zoom call, dude. You know that.
100%,
it's
100%.
Like we can try to be creative in our bubbles with the gloom and doom everywhere, and then come to the Zoom table and be like, I got an idea. So here's how it goes. What? I can't hear you. I'm on mute.
Oh, I'm
Where's
sorry. You go.
video?
No, you go. No, you go. Oh, you go.
No, you go.
Okay, yeah.
No,
wait,
yeah.
something's wrong with your mic. Can we stop and reset?
There's a lot to adapt to, but it certainly has been a crutch that we can't be in the same room together. But now it's like, now we can get tested and we can do social distance and we can wear masks and we can do that, but it just doesn't feel the same, man. I don't want to socially distance a sketch. That's not how that goes. I need to be next to somebody. I need to touch them,
So during the pandemic then, because and I'm not trying to downplay it. Valleyfolk isn't your full-time job. Was it ever? Am I wrong? Would you call it your full-time job?
I'd say it is my first time job. I would say it is my full-time job, but it's kind of like if there's a list of priorities, it's like Valleyfolk is number one, and then it goes to like dynamic banter, and then it goes first time show, and then it goes like anything else from there. And now, is it something that I'm working on every single day, 24 hours a day? No, but it's most of my day. It's like, what am I going to stream that's Valleyfolk related? What graphics am I going to build for some Valleyfolk thing we're releasing soon? What's the merch for this month? What are the pins for this month? And it's a total team effort that takes like chunks of the day, but yeah, I mean, it certainly went to a full-time job that was an office job 9 to 5, whatever the hours were, at our office every single day. And then the pandemic hit, and now we're not in the office anymore. So it's like, it's like, do it when you can, do it when you feel like you can. Let's just make sure someone's making something when the other people are like having their breakdown moments, or they're like, I need to leave
when
LA
they're falling
moments.
apart. Can you do it for everybody else? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Like I went to the guys and was like, I'm having mental and physical fatigue from not seeing my friends, not being able to make the content that I love making, not being able to do so many things that I love. And so I was like, I need to leave LA for like a few days and then come back. And they were like, 100% we'll pick up the slack. And that's how we kind of work.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you do this, I'll do that. Maybe won't do this for a little bit, but you're doing that and that's okay. And then you could take a break while I do this. And it's very like that. So not so much full time, so much as it is like sometime.
Sure. Well, that's just, it's always interesting for me to watch you from afar and think about what your day-to-day is, right? Like mine is so anchored, and obviously because it's a completely different beast of, games day in the morning, go through your emails, move on to the podcast in the afternoon, do whatever stuff I have to do in between there. But for you, spinning so many plates at the same time, right? And I feel like, again, from an outside perspective, because of how creative you are and how many different things you want going and this independent nature of what you do, I just can't imagine.
Yeah, it's overwhelming for sure because I mean, I'm thankful to be busy. I'm thankful to have a lot of things to do. And I'm thankful to be able to work on all the things that I'm working on with the freedom of being able to also maybe like smoke a joint on my balcony and then play Fall Guys for myself for like an hour or something.
Yeah.
It is a lot, man. But it's good. It's good. I want to be busy. I don't want a locked in schedule. I don't think I like the flexibility of like, okay, what's my next week like? Okay, so Monday we have 2 meetings, and then I'm working on this like new thing that I'm working on, and then I'm gonna stream something. And it's like Tuesday is this or that, Wednesday is this or that, Thursday is dynamic banter and a bunch of shit, Friday is more Valleyfolk shit. And it's like nothing's really locked in though, because at any time someone could be like, hey, I can't do noon on Wednesday. Can we do 2:00 on Friday? And then things just kind of float around, and it's not the best way to do
it
things.
Just kind of happens, or it doesn't. Yeah.
That's where it starts to get like a little out of hand, but I don't know. It keeps me on my toes a little bit. I don't know. It's not the way to do it. Certainly.
I was going to say though, do you see yourself tiring of that? I feel like, we talked about SourceFed and how sort of Damocles over your head. Then you're out there, you're hustling, and now you're doing, a million different projects at any point. Like, what is the future for you as an online digital content creator?
I mean, dude, I think we're going to keep this Valleyfolk thing going as long as we possibly can. We're constantly coming up with new ideas for new things and revitalizing old concepts and bringing in new ones and making card games and doing all this shit. I don't know, man. It's because I don't know what's going to happen post-COVID, right?
Sure.
And when post-COVID will even be. And if there even is a post-COVID. Yeah, I mean, I keep saying this on other things, but I foresee a world where COVID is treated like the flu, like a really bad flu. You can get a COVID shot once a year. It's got the new immunities or whatever, but you might just get it. You might be out on your ass for a few weeks. But as long as you take care of yourself and you isolate, you'll be fine, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we'll get to that point where that's how we'll see COVID. That's how we'll be able to handle it. And I think once we get to that place, then we can all go back into studios full time and not worry about, who's getting tested and being on the honor system for where you've been and who you've been seeing.
Who you've talked to,
who you've talked to, who's in your pod, all that shit. Because right now, I just think it's too complicated and too stress induced to figure all of that out. So yeah, we're just gonna keep trucking, dude. We're just gonna truck along.
That's all you can do. You gotta keep trucking, right?
And I'm watching my emails for whenever someone's like, Steve, come do this thing, or Steve, we want to do a shoot, or we want to make a show or something. And
sure,
I'm kind of just the guy that you can call if you want a goofy, chubby dude to make a joke about farts.
It's a good place to fill. That's a good thing, dude.
I think so.
Do you I mean, I know I'm not actually like 10-year plan here. We kind of just covered it of like chips where they fall kind of thing. But, you talked about earlier of like, everybody has that I want to make a movie or I want to do this kind of thing. Do you see yourself trying to transition into traditional entertainment?
I really want to. I grew up in the 80s, so in the 90s, where like you romanticize movies and television. And so of course there's a world where I have like a million movie ideas and TV show ideas. Will I ever do them?
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to. I really want to. I've got some really good ideas that are like right there. And I just need that little bit of motivation in myself to do it.
Do you sit there and write? Do you like actively write stuff, or is
No,
it just like stuff percolating?
It's in my head, and I have my notes on my phone is just like riddled with things that don't make sense and ideas that one day I'd love to do. I just don't have the discipline to just be like, hey, all of these distractions while you're at home, like the Oculus Quest and
like the joint on the
yeah,
the joint in the other room, yeah,
and that coloring book after the joint, and like all of these things, and the work and the podcasts and the streams and all those things. It's like, if I was ever going to sit down and finally write a script or make a series, I would have to be like, hey, I got a job that takes care of the next 6 months for me. So I could just take like a 6-month break, go somewhere isolated, write out a whole show, write out a whole script, and then come back and be like, I wrote a script. But I just don't see myself being able to do that. But it is a dream, man. And it's right there. It's right there.
Do it. You're right there. You're right in the heart of it. Hollywood.
Like, you could do it too, dude. You could write a movie.
But that's not my passion.
But like one day, don't you think you'd be like, I got a movie idea and we can make a kind of funny movie?
I mean, I guess we could. Yeah. Nick had an idea for a long time ago based on a podcast topic I'd give that him and I sat down and we would go for like a couple months every so often. We'd go to a lunch and he would come back with something else he had done. But it's like it's very similar to how me and Gary wrote the comic book, where like I'm always like, I'd love to write a comic book. And then I started doing it. I'm like, man, I really don't like writing comic books. But like when Gary was like, hey, do you want to write a comic book with me? Where I come in and I have a bunch of ideas and he sends me the script and I approve this. And I say, change that or do that. And then he's like, yeah, like that's perfect. That's about the level of commitment I want.
Dude, I totally relate to that. If someone came to me and said, whatever movie script idea you have, if I will write it and we will work together and I'll be the co-writer and you just like approve shit, I'd be like, I'm in. That's the way I'm going to do it.
Yeah. You sit down, you have the ideas together and then just do the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So before you go, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Ghostbusters, because you're a man after my own heart. You have your own proton pack. It hangs on your wall. Very stoked about that. What, I don't even know what the question is. Like, when did you fall in love with Ghostbusters?
My mom was the like nerdy sci-fi comedy lover, so she instantly was like, we're watching Ghostbusters, and then it was on like every single day since I was a kid, essentially. And then real Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 and all the toys and all that shit. Dude, it's a part of me. I don't know if it's like, it's certainly a nostalgia, or if it's like an escapism of a time, escaping to a time where things were better.
A simpler time.
Simpler. But whatever it is, my love of Ghostbusters is so deep. It's right here.
Yeah, no. And I think that's, it's funny because man, we're going full circle to end the podcast. We talk about how a different ideology, you can't believe someone believes a different way. Ghostbusters is the same way, where when Tim and I talk about it, and Tim's like, I just don't get it. I don't understand. I'm like, what?
Dude, that doesn't
how do you not get it? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And like, the fact that I have the suit and the packs and all the stuff and these toys for my unborn, unconceived children, like, I'm in. Like, let's go. Like, yeah.
Are you stoked about the new one? Do you know anything about it? Have you?
I know as much as anybody else does.
Yeah.
Looking into the stuff with, everything that Jason Reitman's put out, and then watching the trailers over and over again and stuff. Like, it seems what we want, right? Like, because for me, like, Ghostbusters Answer the Call was a bad movie, and it had nothing to do with the all-female cast. When they announced that, I was like, this is a brilliant way to do it, because if you go and put any 4 dudes in there or set it in the same universe, how do you get over the fact that the first 2 were so monumental?
Right.
And so I thought the idea of like going, we're in a, different cast, different universe, that was great. And then the movie itself was just not good, I thought, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So to come back into it this way and back into it, first off with Jason, being Ivan's son. So you have that through to it. To, I think, wrap it, and granted, I'm grasping at what I believe from the trailers and what they've talked about in interviews you'll read here and there, but like to do it in the real world loss of Harold Ramis, to put it in the real world loss, or the fake world loss of Egon, and what that meant, and like to carry over everything we know and love about it, but put it into a different universe unto itself. You know what I mean? Like even Paul Rudd talking about watching of like, you don't know the Ghostbusters, they were like The Walking Dead. Like that's such a brilliant way of doing it, of just like, yeah, it's over and ghosts haven't been around in forever, and so they've all faded away. Like,
which kind of has that Ghostbusters 2 feel to it when they're like doing the birthday party and they're like, we want He-Man, not the Ghostbusters. And it's like, even in a universe where the Ghostbusters exist, there's like a time where they were great, and then there's a time where they're kind of forgotten. And that's an interesting concept to explore, especially now when there's like, it's the original Ghostbusters is such a distant thing that's like a classic, a timeless classic, but it really is dated, and it's an older movie, and it's like bringing that idea that comes into our new timeline, and what are the ramifications of those feelings of losing Harold Ramis, and then in that universe losing Egon, and what that's like. And yeah, dude, the fact that Jason Reitman's doing it, that's a huge thing. And Carrie Coon's in it, and Finn Wolfhard's in it, and the whole, like, basically everybody from the Ghostbusters franchise is back.
That's like what I'm fascinated with, is that, with Answer the Call, they were trying to start a new franchise and do all this different stuff. What I don't know with Afterlife is their plan that this is just a fun Ghostbusters one to get them back on the big screen? I know they've been working on that Ghostbusters Go to Hell cartoon forever. I know that there's probably always a Ghostbuster video game to develop somewhere. Like, obviously they continue to do stuff with the property, but like, is this meant to be the send-off to the cinematic universe that we know and like end cap it? Or is it meant to be that it is a start, and it is the young kids that save the day there, team up with Paul Rudd at the end, and they have jumpsuits and they're ready? Because like the trailer vibe is not that.
No, it seems very dramatic, and it seems kind of gritty and not so lighthearted, really.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, if that's their cinematic send-off, I think I'd be okay with that. But there's a world where, you could get Lord and Miller on like an Into the Spider-Verse style Ghostbusters animated movie with that same team. And I think you jumpstart the Ghostbusters world again. Like, I think it just needs maybe like a very careful type MCU-ish, Pixar-esque approach to new Ghostbusters stuff. And I think we can get away from trying to recapture the love of the original Ghostbusters and just going like, let's do an animated Spider-Verse. Let's maybe consider a mini series or something, or some kind of HBO series maybe. And then let's go into video games and do some fucking like really good Ghostbusters video games. But I don't know.
I think that makes more sense than ever. I think, and that's what I think is interesting about Afterlife, where obviously they're doing like Evo Shandor stuff again, Shandor Mines, right? So it's clearly tying directly into everything that happened in Ghostbusters 1. And so I imagine it's closing it. And the way I think first off, it sounds incredibly hackneyed when I say it, because I'm not a script writer and I don't know how to do things with any kind of class. But my prediction for the end of Ghostbusters Afterlife is that obviously everybody's come back together. We know the original cast is there. They've been brought back to this town or whatever because of Egon, because of what they've seen, and because now this crap's going. The kids are obviously the ones trying to stop the ghost, but at the end of it, when it is this giant, whatever, culmination, I think it's going to be the door swings both ways of Gozer again, and it's going to be Egon's ghosts closing the gates, and I think we'll be shot from behind the entire time, like whatever it is, that like that moment of like when they nuke Gozer's doorway in 1, right, and they all get up and like what's going on. I think there'll be that moment of like the calm after the storm, and it'll be like Egon's ghost from behind in his jumpsuit walks out, everybody's there, like you get Bill Murray going like Egon, and then it's like he hugs his daughter, his grandkids, he like waves goodbye and like is corny as it would be to completely do it, but like that cartoon of Slimer and him walking away, like I think you get that as like the final shot of like closure to this universe and what the story was all the way through.
It would be cool to see like a Slimer maybe like helping them, but not as Slimer, the like gross slimy mutant thing, but as like the person he was before he was Slimer or something. Sure. That could be kind of cool. But my wish of how they handle Egon would be like, because I guess his daughter, it's about his daughter, right? Like, or his daughter
it
is
seems
one
like
of
that's
the
the idea. That
characters.
it seems like it's his daughter and the kids are his grandkids.
Right. And I feel like what I'd like to see is his daughter goes into some kind of like, like the other side, or goes to like some sort of poltergeist, like, go into the light Carol Ann type place.
Yeah.
And then she comes back through and she's like, kind of like shocked. And that's the end of the movie. And it all leads to this moment where they're like, what happened? What happened? And did you see Egon? Like, was he there? And then she goes like, he was there. And it was great to see him. And then that's the end, like
that's really good.
Not like that's the end of the movie, but that's what we get of Egon. Like this moment of, she had a moment we don't need to see, where she got to finally have her moment with her dad or something.
That's a great
and
point.
He helped them or something.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a way to do it where you see him in silhouette, or you see the costume, or like you were saying, it's like a behind shot of like a ghost or something. But even more so, I think it'd be great if it's like, what if we just don't see him? Because then it's like even more respectful, right? It's not like Princess Leia, in Rogue One or something. Yeah.
Do you know Jack Patillo from Achievement Hunter?
No.
Another big ghost head. And he told me, and it's funny because we're talking about this multiverse thing, right? And how they could get away with it and do stuff with it. His pitch for how, regardless of what you thought of Answer the Call, the way it should have ended, or the post-mid-credit scene should have been them tinkering with gear in the basement, right? It's Melissa McCarthy and she's doing something and she hits it, and maybe they've already talked about Zool or whatever, but they hits it and boom, like a portal opens on the wall. And on the other side is Ray testing a similar device. And being like, what? And that way, right? Of like what you're talking about, have established that there's a multiverse of Ghostbusters.
It's so hard to, like, I'm sure it's so hard to make movies, like you were saying, and write movies.
and
get ideas. And
we got it right here. Just put it on the page, somebody.
Yeah, just give it to us. We'll do it. We'll give you all the cool ideas. You write it, and then we'll just put our name on it.
Exactly. That's easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I would love that someday. People that were like super fans of Ghostbusters, like write a Ghostbusters movie, and then that gets made into a Ghostbusters movie. Because you hear about all the time the directors that were influenced by like George Lucas and Spielberg, and JJ's such a Spielberg guy.
Super fan, yeah.
Yeah, super fan. It'd be nice to see the generation of people that like grew up with all of this stuff making movies and getting a chance to make those types of movies.
100%.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you for being one of our cool friends.
Craig, thank you for being my cool friend.
Where can people keep up with you?
Well, you can keep up with me at youtube.com/the Valleyfolk. That's where I do my things. And also just my social medias and stuff. Steve Zaragoza. That's where I'm at.
Easy.
That's where I live.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been We Have Cool Friends. Remember, each and every week, usually Tuesdays, we come to you with one of our cool friends with the cool stuff they're doing in the cool video game or entertainment world industry. If you like that, head over to patreon.com/kindafunny, where you can ask them questions and get the show ad free. Our next guests are something special. David Mandel and Ryan Condal. You might say, no idea who they are, but you'll know their work. David has worked on Veep, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Seinfeld. Ryan worked on Rampage and Hercules. They are starting a new podcast, The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of. We're going to be talking to them about all of that. Nick will be with me to ask all the nerdy entertainment questions in the world.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
I know, right?
Wait, which Hercules? It doesn't matter. I'm in for both.
Thank you very much. That's what I like to hear, Kevin. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.